Hello, and welcome to the League of Women Voters of Portland's Voter Forum for candidates running for Multnomah County Sheriff. I'm Debbie Kay, President of the League of Women Voters of Portland. The League is a nonpartisan organization dedicated to making democracy work. We believe democracy works best when voters are informed about issues and engaged in their communities. We're presenting this forum to give Multnomah County voters the opportunity to learn more about these two candidates, Under Sheriff Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell and Captain Derek Peterson. All candidates were invited to participate in this forum. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've not been able to resume our traditional in-person voter forums. We expect to do so for next fall's general election. All participants, therefore, are in different locations. The League is grateful for the support of the Carolyn Velma Sailing Foundation, the Weiss Foundation, the League of Women Voters of Portland Education Fund, and our media partner, Metro East Community Media. Our moderator for this forum is League member Carolyn Bupert. Carolyn, please go ahead.
Thank you, Debbie. Hello, I'm Carolyn Bupert, moderator for this voter forum. Under the rules which were agreed to by the candidates, they'll each have an opening statement of 2 minutes each, and then they'll answer questions that we developed, and they'll have 90 seconds each for each question, and then they'll have 2 minutes each for a closing statement. In terms of who goes first, we use this Secretary of State's random alphabet to decide who would go first. So under that, Captain Peterson, you'll go first, and then we'll alternate after that. So Captain Peterson, please proceed.
Thank you, and thanks for allowing me to address the League of Women's Voters. So Derek Peterson, born and raised here in Multnomah County in North Portland. I went to Holy Redeemer Grade School, Central Catholic High School, and Portland State University, where I received my degree in Administration of Justice. I've been working with the county, the Sheriff's Office for over 35 years. And in that 35 years, I had a chance to be in leadership for close to 25 years of that time spent. And has given me an array of responsibilities that has prepared me to be the next sheriff of Multnomah County. I have certificates and certifications, and as I look into August of this year, I would hope to be able to go to the academy to be dual certified and be ready to take office in January. So that's my plan. I have an array of people that have endorsed me, including or other organizations such as Ask Me, Local 88, and the Corrections Union. And those two by themselves make up close to 80% of the Sheriff's Office, who I believe has spoken very loud as to the change in direction they would like to see in our organization as they represent not only the county, the Sheriff's Office, but also represent our community as a whole. So I'm very excited about that. I've been a leader in the community for years and decades before I even looked at being a sheriff. And so I'm the president of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives locally here. I've been doing a lot of work with community organizations through that organization, and a leader dealing with crime and the homelessness situation and other things that are going on that are just appalling at this point, and with the system that is extremely broken and fractured. On the state level, I've been a diversity instructor for over 25 years, been extremely successful at that. And I've been one of a few.
Thank you. We've run out of time. Please finish the sentence.
Just been one of a few handful of people who have been on committees around law enforcement reform for the state level, and I'm very proud of that work that I've been doing and continue to do.
Thank you. Under Sheriff Morrissey O'Donnell, please give your opening statement.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. So again, I'm Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell, and I've been working with the Sheriff's Office for over 25 years. But when I think back about attending University of Portland and starting out as a music major, I never thought that this is where that would lead me to running for sheriff over 25 years later. But when I share a story with you, it will all make sense. When I was very young, I learned at a very early age how your sense of security could be ripped away from you. My father was working small businesses up and down Highway 30, and a 15-year-old boy came in and shot him in the chest. He lived, but again, that is why I'm deeply concerned and deeply connected to what we're seeing in our community right now around gun violence and the harm that that is doing to our community. And I'm dedicated to continuing to work with community partners to help make our community safe again. So I started actually in the Corrections Division with Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. And early in my career, I knew that I wanted to lead at a different level. So I worked my way through different promotional opportunities and had the opportunity to lead over the last 7 or so years our training unit, chief deputy of our correction services unit, chief deputy of our law enforcement division. And now I currently serve in the role of undersheriff, which is second in command. In my daily operations, I oversee law enforcement and business services, which is a $171 million budget and 800 personnel. What's unique about me is I have already attained my police officer certification. That is a 4-month process full-time at the police academy, as well as 3 to 4 months of doing field training with your home agency with a coach in your vehicle, learning how to take 911 calls. So I'm ready to move into this role and take this job on day one. And not only, again, do I have the corrections background, but I also have the law enforcement background. So I will be the first dual certified sheriff to step into that role if I'm elected on January 1st. I also would be the first female sheriff elected or appointed into this position if I were to be elected in January. First female to serve as the chief deputy of law enforcement.
I'm sorry, we've run out of time.
Oh, I
can
didn't
finish the sentence.
And I'm ready to step into the job on day one and have all of the certifications and training to do so.
Thank you. So first question, and we'll give Under Sheriff Morrissey O'Donnell the first crack at this. A county audit of jail conditions, which was just released, found, among other things, that deputies used force against Black adults in custody at a higher rate, and that jail conditions were worse for people with mental health conditions. And the sheriff has responded to the audit report. So would you comment on the sheriff's response to the audit report?
Yes, absolutely. First, I want to say my top priority is the health and safety of all of our adults in custody, and really to provide our staff with the necessary training and skills to be able to create a safe environment for everyone. I support the auditing of our systems all across the board. And I believe it's necessary for us to be audited so we can be transparent to our community, hold ourselves accountable, and be able to put the training in place that is necessary, again, to keep our community and our adults in custody safe. So, when we're looking at areas focusing in on training opportunities, and while I was leading the training unit, I invested in training opportunities that were outside of the county realm. They included National Alliance on Mental Illness. They included partnering with Disability Rights Oregon, and they included partnering with Trauma Intervention Program, and then Mental Health First Aid. So I think there are many areas where we need to continue to be accountable to our public through public-facing data systems with use of force and our corrective action and disciplinary processes, through transparency in our public-facing policy process, so our community has an opportunity to weigh in on the policies that we're putting in place, and then looking at a learning experience for diversity, equity, and inclusion, ensuring that what we're providing to our staff and what we're engaging our staff in isn't a check-the-box training, and we're really learning how to better interact with adults in our custody, and better interact as a management team to ensure we're guiding our members and our policies and our practices in a way that is in alignment with community expectations.
Thank you. Captain Peterson.
Yes, so the report is very telling to the extent of what we need to do as an organization to address the issues of disparities. And my life's work has been about diversity, and I just got through teaching a class actually yesterday with new recruits, and I believe we need to come off the base of a diversity 101 and challenge our recruits, our staff in dealing with people who are different than they are. And it's going to start with robust training for sure. And One of those aspects that I provide is a leadership within that in a context based off my life experience as a person of color, and then the experience of leading an organization, being a leader in the organization in the sheriff's office for over 25 or close to 25 years. So I believe that we have a lot to do in providing that training and engaging our folks, but holding our people accountable and bringing in services that are more robust as far as those folks who have mental health issues, bringing in services that are fair and maybe an objective based type of classification system that can look at the folks that we are dealing with on a daily basis and just being more fair and consistent with how we're housing them and where we're housing them, so that they can be ready to be released out in the community in a more in a better fashion, and a more where they're linked up with organizations and other places that they can go to be more productive citizens in our society. So
Thank you. Our next question goes first to Captain Peterson. How would you endeavor to enhance public trust in the sheriff's office?
public trust is one of those pillars of 21st century policing. And I believe we need to be more exposed to the public. We need to be more transparent in bringing people into our organization to show them what we're actually doing. We need to be proactive in approaching our public, not making them come to us. Community oversight is a major issue of mine that I would love to bring in that's more robust. We have some of that set up, but it hasn't been used to its fullest abilities at this point in time. So I'm looking forward to addressing that and really meeting the community where they're at, having coffee with the sheriff, having town halls, and addressing the issues and listening to the people of Multnomah County and asking them the questions and responding and as to what they want to do, how they want our police agency, our sheriff's office to respond and be a part of the community, including dealing with our youth in a different way, as they are our future. And at this point, we're seeing that the youth and other people are hesitant to become police officers, and our profession is at peril if we don't address this immediately. So those are some of the things I'm looking at and would love to be able to do that with our community.
Thank you. Under Sheriff.
Yes, community engagement is key to this. So being able to have those positive community engagement sessions. I'm currently leading a session next week for a Somali American group through the Somali American Council of Oregon. Really just listening from our community and hearing where their concerns are and where we can help, and building bridges and being able to break down those barriers with folks that have not had a good experience with law enforcement. And part of that work is also working with our equity and inclusion manager. I worked alongside her to develop a 12-week equity and inclusion learning experience. And that was about having deputies and leadership be in classes for just 1 hour a week with a debrief session, and really hearing from community and hearing experiences. So it was a scaffolded learning approach. So they were able to really engage in a different way than a check the box type of training. And, you know, some of my supporters have commented that I'm a bridge builder, that I work alongside our community to be able to put strategies in place that, again, are in alignment with community expectations, and also looking at alternative responses to a regular law enforcement response. So engaging with our community on reimagining how we do this work each and every day, and really building those bridges by attending community events in and out of uniform and engaging with community on a different level and building that relationship.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll start with Under Sheriff Morrissey O'Donnell. Many law enforcement agencies have civilian review boards to provide insights into an agency's administration. Would you be in favor of or opposed to such a civilian review board for the sheriff's office?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I'm always open to looking at areas where we can engage community and community groups on how can we do this work different and better. And I know that transparency and accountability is critical as we are creating a better sheriff's office, again, to serve our community and build that trust within our community. So we do have many systems of accountability. Part of being a sheriff's office, we also have many layers of accreditation and accountability that we're already working with, such as the Oregon State Sheriff's Association jail standards audit. I would be recommending as sheriff to bring in the National Institute of Corrections to do another use of force audit, and really looking at where can we improve also our operations. I was supportive of bringing in our complaint and intake process, bringing in a civilian manager and not having that attached to the sheriff's office sworn position. So I'm always open to exploring opportunities to bring in community and civilian groups to audit our processes. And, you know, as I'm looking across the board, we're also going to be accredited through law enforcement, through legislation as well. So we'll be working on that process as it's a 18 to 24 month process. So I'm looking forward to engaging in more processes that could audit our systems across the board, not just corrections and law enforcement, but our operations overall, so we can better and be more transparent and accountable to our community.
Thank you. Captain?
I feel it's extremely important to include the community in oversight, and the sheriff's office needs to continue to lead the way in that. We've been actually short as we haven't had a chance to really present a robust community type of forum to bring community into the sheriff's offices and understand our operations. We need to be thinking forward at this point, and forward means how do we bring our community into the sheriff's office to get them engaged in a different way than they ever have. Getting them to look at policies, the things that drive the sheriff's office, both on the law enforcement side and also in the correction side of the house. We're also need to look at how we are addressing those who are non-sworn, our records folks, people who are the backbone of our organization that rarely get the credit that they deserve to that extent. So bringing in those organizations that are doing the work out there as well. So it's a layered approach. It's not just any community member, which is fantastic, but you have organizations that have a vested interest in how the sheriff's office is performing and how they are dealing with issues around gun violence, around the criminality of the criminal issues that are happening, the homelessness and the other things that are going on. So it's extremely important that we look to have a more robust conversation with our community and bringing them forward into looking at how we actually operate and educating them.
Okay, thank you. Our next question will go first to Captain Peterson. Which factors would you consider in exercising your discretion in issuing licenses for concealed handguns?
That's kind of out of my purview, unfortunately. So I'd be answering without a lot of background and information, but I think it's important that we uphold to the laws that we have on the books to make sure that those who are eligible to get guns are in line with the laws that are on the books, for sure, that we're tracking those people who are receiving gun licenses and making sure that they're getting the training that they need to have those particular firearms, what they're actually purchasing and buying. So I am well for the laws that are on the books, like I said, and making sure that we're holding our citizens accountable and making sure that we're tracking the guns that are out there and they're getting the training for safety purposes and how they are storing their guns and their weapons and making sure that they're doing that accordingly.
Thank you. Undersheriff?
Yeah, so when I look at the concealed handgun license process, I want to ensure that we are offering the applicable training so people know how to store their guns safely. With the new legislation of ensuring that people have safekeeping of their firearms, I think that is critical. And then providing information to those who own firearms, so they have information on to access resources such as if they have a family member that may be experiencing some type of mental health crisis or situation, or if someone's in a domestic violence situation, being able to communicate and being able to share that information. A couple of the initiatives that I'm working on currently are gun dispossession unit. And that is if someone is served a restraining order, that part of the court order is to for that person to relinquish their firearms. So I assigned 2 additional deputies to do that work. And that is part of if someone's owning a firearm legally, but then they're served with this court order, they need to relinquish those firearms for the safety of our survivors and our victims. So looking at ensuring that we're following the laws where people can have responsible and legal gun ownership, but making sure that we take an active role in providing that education, providing firearms, weapons locks, and having access to our staff to ask those questions and to provide information, even if it's in a pamphlet form or on our website, about things that people should be looking out for to ensure that they're safe keeping, as well as families are remaining safe with children in the house or other situations that might arise, as I spoke about prior.
Thank you. You're listening to the Voter Forum from the League of Women Voters of Portland, and I'm here with the candidates for Multnomah County Sheriff, who are Derek Peterson and Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell. The next question goes to Under Sheriff Morrissey O'Donnell. First, please describe your philosophy of providing mutual aid to or requesting mutual aid from other law enforcement agencies. What principles would guide your exercise of discretion on this subject?
So each time that we have a request or that we're requesting assistance from any of our partner agencies, for us, when someone's requesting our assistance, we remain in alignment with all of our policies and procedures. And we also have a person that is in charge of our team, or like an incident commander, along with our team. So it's not a situation where another leader from another agency is directing something that might be outside of our policies. So we all want to, as public safety professionals, want to assist in, if someone asks for assistance. Right now, I'm currently working on initiatives to address some of the more challenging issues in our community, such as gun violence, traffic fatalities. And what we're doing is putting collaborative teams together to be able to look at data and work toward using all of our public safety organizations and our community-based organizations to address these issues together. But we will be in alignment in what our goals are to ensure that everyone, again, adheres to their policies and procedures, what may be slightly different in all of our agencies. But also, I've been asked at one point about utilizing a specialized team that wasn't a trauma-informed type of situation with potentially our houseless community, and that was something that I was not going to be doing. So ensuring that our goals and what we're there to do is in alignment with our values within Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, and that we're in those situations responding in a trauma-informed way. And if it's another situation where it's a safety issue, again, that we are working together alongside those agencies that we're partnering with, or they're partnering with us, to ensure, one, a safe community, and that we're following all of our policies and procedures, and again, in community alignment with their expectations of our community.
Thank you. Captain Peterson.
Yes, could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, please describe your philosophy of providing mutual aid to or requesting mutual aid from other law enforcement agencies. What principles would guide your exercise of discretion there?
Well, I think it's extremely important that we work with our partners across the board, Clackamas or Portland, Gresham, Washington County, and having agreements in place early on. We need to have those conversations as to what our policies on both sides of the house are, both sides of the organizations, and ensuring that our staff are protected when they go out and engage with other agencies, or other agencies are coming to us to help us out in our situations and issues. And I just kind of a firm believer in cross training to that extent to make sure that we're all on the same page. And though we may have different policies, that we're training together and knowing and understanding what the right hand is doing and the left hand is doing to that extent. So just making sure that we have robust policies in place with that, making sure that we have people that are in place that are representatives of each agency that meet, whether it's quarterly or monthly, to ensure that we are staying in line with the state laws and the other issues that come about. So I think it's important that you not just sign a document and just leave it on the shelf. It needs to be worked through on a daily basis so that when there's an issue that comes up, we're ready to go and not having to dust that off and just not being able to perform to the highest level of the duties that we're called to do.
Thank you. So the next question will go first to Captain Peterson. What actions, if any, could the sheriff take to address the homeless crisis in the county?
Well, this is one of the things that's at the heart of my campaign, and I just really believe that there's more beds that need to be available to the homelessness. It's a process to deal with the issues behind homelessness. There could be a mental health nexus. There could be a drug or sometimes type of substance abuse nexus to that. And so we need to look at all the beds that are available out there, and a situation where we can bring in a therapeutic type of situation, and like at Inverness, at the Inverness jail. To be able to do that would be extremely helpful in providing temporary housing, wraparound services to get them ready to go out into the community and engage in a different level than they have been. So homelessness is at the top of my list. We've got organizations out there, organization in Nashville, Davidson County, that dedicated a whole floor of their jail to mental health and homelessness. That's been very successful. We have Bybee Lakes, that was a jail at one point and has been transformed magnificently into helping our people that are at risk out in the community. We just need more resources, and we need to look at the existing resources we have right now and how we would convert them into a therapeutic, short-term type of situation to get our people in situations where they're more active and productive in our society.
Thank you. Undersheriff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a different approach, not utilizing a jail facility that is 24/7 locked right now. We're in crisis. We need to work directly with those who are houseless in our community and identify their unique needs. I oversee this work as part of our homeless outreach and programs engagement team. And when I went to lead the law enforcement division, I reinvested in that team because I knew it was a critical resource that we didn't have in East County particularly. I also was part of achieving a grant for a clinician to be on site with our homeless outreach and programs engagement team, really working alongside those in our houseless community that really desperately need assistance right now. So I believe that as you're looking at Oregon being second in need for mental health and addiction treatment and resources, second in need for those, and we're nearly last in being able to access those. So utilizing our system partners, Cascadia Behavioral Health, the public health system, and really breaking down those barriers and connecting with people in a different way, providing emergency type shelters all the way up to longer term housing. So a person-centered approach and a trauma-informed approach. And that is what we've taught our deputies and those that work alongside our deputies to really work with our houseless community to address this issue alongside them and help them break down the barriers so they're able to access safe housing each and every night.
Thank you. So our next question will go first to Undersheriff Morrissey O'Donnell. Since the pandemic began, shooting and gun deaths have risen in the county. What methods would you consider to seek to reduce that trend?
Absolutely. This is the work that I'm currently leading with the Sheriff's Office in East County right now, and we hope to be able to have more collaborative approaches in the city of Portland. So I am directly working with our investigators. I've added one investigator that works collaboratively as a team with the Gresham investigator to ensure that every gun violence incident is investigated and people are held accountable for creating violence in our community. I also work closely with the Office of Violence Prevention and Healing Hurt People. One, Office of Violence Prevention, when we have a gun violence incident, having some street outreach that comes to the scene and really connects with community in a very trauma-informed way and de-escalates the situation and builds that trust. I also work with Healing Hurt People, so a hospital-based response. So if someone were in the hospital for a gun violence incident, that's another response where people are able to connect with someone that's potentially a victim of a crime and being able to work through that and see if there's a possibility of finding that moment where people need to change something in their lives, or how can they provide the resources necessary to keep people keep people safe and keep people on the right path. Under my leadership, we had the largest seizure of illegal firearms in the history of the organization. That is through gun dispossession, and that is also through guns that were seized as part of crimes. So I am deeply concerned about what's happening in our community, and I am leading efforts currently, and I will continue to lead those to reduce the gun violence in our communities across Multnomah County, not just in East County, but really working with all of our partners to address this in all parts of our county.
Thank you. Captain Peterson.
Yes, gun violence is at the top of my list as well. And as I work with community leaders, political leaders, civil rights leaders, faith-based leaders, organizations such as the Interfaith Peace and Action Collaborative, it's at the front of our list. And one of the things that is being done is being collaborative in our approach. And it's a multi-layered approach where we engage police and would be our county sheriff's office and Portland and Gresham in dealing with these situations and working collaborative to solve some of these issues. Bringing more resources into the focus intervention team and some of the other teams that are out there, really getting more of a robust situation of how we develop our resources now that the gang task force team was disbanded, making sure that we are figuring out better ways to quickly get our resources together so that we can identify the people that are at risk, people that are dealing with guns and illegally, and just making sure that we're on top of that. I think it's again a multi-focus approach because it's not just about the guns necessarily, but it's about the people in the aftermath. There's a lot of people that are hurting, mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and cousins who are having to deal with the fallout from that particular issue when somebody uses a gun in a situation. We need to look at being intervene earlier rather than later in offering services to people for a de-escalation purpose, how they are dealing with folks on a daily basis, as we see the pandemic has kind of unleashed a level of frustration that we haven't seen before. So we need to be proactive in that.
Thank you. So our next question will go first to Captain Peterson. Is the amount of overtime pay collected by employees at the sheriff's office of concern to you? Why or why not?
I think we have a balance, so it's not necessarily a concern at this point in time. There's a balance at this point where we are down close to 50 corrections deputies within the organization at this point, and we're down close to 10 to 12 people in our law enforcement division, and that just goes across the board. So at this point, there's kind of an evenness that happens to our overtime, where I believe that it's in balance at this particular time. But one of the issues I have is that there's forced overtime going on, where our officers are being forced to work over and over again, and it really comes down to a specific amount of officers who are getting that particular overtime. I am in agreement with how we have looked at dispersing that particular overtime by offering a little bit more incentive to folks to work overtime so that not everyone, and it's spread across the length of all our employees have that burden to come in and work and help our situation out. So I would look to make sure that there's a balance with that as our numbers go up with employment in the correction side and law enforcement side, and making sure that it's balanced out. But this time, I think we're doing a fairly good job of maintaining it.
Thank you. Undersheriff.
Yeah, so with respect to this question, I think the biggest challenge why there's an overabundance of overtime pay is because we have a staffing, recruiting, and retention issue right now that is very detrimental to our employees. So when we look at our budget, we want our budget to match our values, and our value of really taking care of and ensuring that our members have the appropriate training, the appropriate supports, the appropriate time away from the job as well is really critical. So when we're looking at, budgetarily, where are we spending our money? The challenge is that we are, as Captain Peterson mentioned, very short in not just our sworn law enforcement and corrections, but we're also very short staffed in our non-sworn professional staff roles. So looking at strategies that I have advocated for to restructure the human resources unit, what we're seeing with recruiting and retention and hiring is different than what we were seeing 3 or so years ago. So we have to adjust to the current times, and we have to use more technology. We have to use social media. We have to put ourselves in a place where people are looking at Multnomah County Sheriff's Office as their place to begin their career and stay for a long and healthy career. So, to ensure that we are providing the most professional services to our community, that is why we're having an overtime issue, is that we are really working through a recruiting, staffing, and retention issue. So right now, I know that we're evaluating that, but we really need to put strategies in place to address those pieces as well.
All right, thank you. So our next question will go first to Undersheriff Morrissey O'Donnell. What's your opinion on the use of body cameras by deputies?
This is a great question. And, transparency and accountability to our community is key. And I am in favor of body cameras on our law enforcement deputy sheriffs. I am involved currently right now with advocating for that in our current budget processes. So we are looking at what staff do we need to ensure that we're able to take care of the technology piece, but also the policy pieces that will have robust community engagement and public insight into the policies that we'll be developing. But absolutely, I think it's critical that we're able to release as much information as possible to our community when there's an incident, pending any type of investigative need. But our deputies are in favor of that. And you can see some of that in our corrections division. We have robust camera systems all across both of our jail facilities. So this is something that is not new, and people are ready for this change. And they also recognize, that we value community trust, and to improve community trust and build those bridges and be held accountable to our community, that this is a great resource to move forward on.
Thank you. Captain?
Yeah, I am in total agreement with body cams, and as our community is asking for that, and not just because they're asking for it, it's the right thing to do. It's been quite a long time coming that we have been looking at it, and it's time, especially for an agency of our size. The training aspects of it's going to be extremely important, and the retention of the video cam footage is going to be important. How we train people through that process, and opening it up to our public, our community, on a level that we never had before, to be more exposed. And this is a part of that 21st century policing and transparency, as we look for better ways to be forward thinking and aggressive in how we present ourselves to the community that is asking for a change and asking for more information. And I think it's important as we go forward to make sure that there's an availability to get information out, like I said, as soon as we can, barring situations that would jeopardize an investigation. But that gives us a leeway to be able to do that and answer the public the public need for that particular type of information. So I'm very much for body cams.
Thank you. Our next question will go first to Captain Peterson. Are you generally satisfied with Oregon's laws concerning guns? If not, what changes might you support?
Well, I think we need to look at capacity for how gun capacity as far as the magazines, and I know there's some legislation or some type of movement towards that, and I would love to see what our organizations and other community organizations are doing with that. I believe that how many bullets in a chamber is extremely important to see how we can legislate that to that extent. And I'm just like I said, I'm for looking at other laws. We have a lot of laws on the books, and I believe that if we are enforcing some of those laws more robustly, we would have a better chance at intercepting illegal guns or people who have illegal guns and who are accessing those guns. So I know that there, for sure, as I've read through many of the laws that are in the books, if we can even just enforce a few of those to a more robust level. But again, I think we look at capacity of those particular items that are out there, the assault weapons that are out there. Why are we using them? An educational campaign needs to be launched with our public and those who use those particular guns, and figuring out a better pathway in the production or the use of those particular guns for those who have them. So that's what I believe in.
Thank you. Undersheriff.
Can you repeat that? I apologize.
Yeah. Are you generally satisfied with Oregon's laws concerning guns? And if not, what changes might you support?
So I think there are areas that I'm seeing directly with the work that I'm doing with our investigations unit that I think we do need to look a little bit harder at to determine if we have strategies in place to intercede. So for instance, is someone who does not have any type of mental health or criminal background being able to purchase hundreds of firearms and then sell them to those who are creating harm in our community. So ensuring that we have robust investigation efforts when those situations arise so we can take the guns out of dangerous hands. So I think I'm always open to looking at where we see that people are accessing firearms that shouldn't have them, and how can we close those holes. And I think that comes from experience and what we're seeing in the community, and really engaging our community stakeholders on what they're seeing as well. So again, looking at investigative efforts and ensuring that we are partnering with all of our local public safety partners, because gun violence doesn't stop at the county line or any of our jurisdictional borders. So if we're seeing something in our area that maybe Portland isn't seeing, we need to be able to address those issues. And then if there's legislation to put in place moving forward, then we should explore those. Again, I think we're, over the history, we've seen different ways people have accessed firearms to create violence in our community, and that will be ever changing. So one of the areas is also ghost guns, and looking at, I know there's legislation now to remove those as well. So it really comes down to where are we seeing some trends as well, so we can start addressing those, because it does change rapidly, and it has changed rapidly over the last few years.
Thank you. You're listening to the Voters Forum from the League of Women Voters of Portland, and we're here with the candidates for Multnomah County Sheriff, who are Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell and Derek Peterson. Our next question goes first to Undersheriff Morrissey O'Donnell. Please name one of your role models and explain why that person is a role model for you.
Well, I don't want it to sound too cliche, but it is my father. So my father, as I described in the beginning of this, and our family went through a very traumatic time when I was very young. And at that time, it was 4 of us kids and my mom, and being shuffled around to many different families' homes while he was in the hospital, I'm sure was extremely challenging for all of our family, considering that we did not talk about this incident for 40 years. The only way I learned more about my father being shot at one of his businesses is through newspaper articles that I found at my great aunt's house in California. So I am proud that he taught me and instilled in me resiliency, taking care of your community. He ran small businesses and small communities for 50 years. And really connecting with community in a different way. And so I've always been proud of working in public service and learning that from my father, and really learning how to navigate really tough times within your community, as in that instant, and within your family. And being able to come out of the other side as a stronger person and be able to help others that might be in that situation. When I look at resources and services that are available now, those weren't available, in the 70s. So thinking back about how can I utilize, that incident to ensure that we're providing the best services to our community based on some of my experience. So I really, it's my father. He taught me, how to navigate even this world of law enforcement that is traditionally low in females working in law enforcement. So that is who I admire, and I appreciate that question. That was kind of a fun question to answer.
Thank you. Captain.
Yeah, I'm kind of stuck between my father and a young man that's my son, who is Trey Peterson. And I'm going to go with my son because about 11 years ago, he suffered a traumatic brain injury and a concussion that left him debilitated in so many different ways. And at the end of this 11-year period, it's not the end by all means, he still is suffering from a headache that has never gone away since the incident. And his ability to perform, to persevere, to show us that the human spirit, that you can continue to move on and be productive in this society, is just outstanding. And it really motivates me to be a better person, a better husband, a better father to that extent. And so as he's gone on to had a chance to graduate from George Fox, and now he's working at a college and doing fantastic in that way. But the deal is, you would never know that he's suffering every day, and he puts on a smile. He shows me what it is to be passionate about what you do and persevere through these processes. And so for those reasons, my son gets the nod for that.
Thank you. Our next question will go first to Captain Peterson. What are your ideas as to how to reduce the amounts paid out by the county taxpayers in verdicts or settlements of lawsuits against the sheriff's department?
This is another issue that comes across with training and more training and more training. And the more our folks are brought into situations where they understand policies and how to carry out those policies effectively with a degree, more than just a degree, but able to bring in the humanity aspect of carrying out those policies and understanding the ramifications of creating outside of it. So I think policy and the training aspect of it is extremely important as we introduce new hires coming through the process of use of force. That's one of our high-end places where we end up paying out exorbitant amounts of money to that extent. And so we need to address that. And as we address it, we need to make sure that we're holding our staff accountable for their actions and what they're doing on a daily basis, and that they are bringing in that humanity aspect to their job and their training aspect of it. So holding our folks accountable and making sure that they understand what is expected of them, having clear, concise guidelines and expectations is another big issue of how we are managing our staff on a daily basis and bringing, like I said, robust training, not just secondary or training that is not effective in that degree. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. Undersheriff?
Yeah, I think one of the areas that I've seen that has been lacking is that connection to our attorneys that are dealing with those cases. So if we had more strategies to get that data and be able to see trends and where are we seeing difficulties, then we would be able to better work with our staff to ensure that we can limit those types of situations. But training is critical. I remember times as a deputy not really understanding certain processes until you move through different leadership roles, and then they're in your purview. And so once we as leadership recognize those things, being able to put training plans together, whether that is consistent trainings in their briefings and roll calls, which we could connect with our staff every day, or if that's building a more robust training plan with some of our other system partners, with our county attorney's office, being able to really connect with our employees and run through some scenarios and talk with them. But it also is clear expectations and guidance. So ensuring that we provide as leadership clear expectations, not just to one level below, but really ensuring that those clear expectations get communicated in the same way to all of our line staff. And I think that once we're able to communicate in a way that our staff is understanding what an action or how that action may impact the rest of the organization or them at a later time, I think once they have the why, then they're going to be more willing to ensure that they're checking all those boxes and ensuring that they're following all of our policies and procedures and the clear expectations that we're providing them.
Thank you. Our next question will go first to Under Sheriff Morrissey O'Donnell. What is your opinion of the constitutional sheriff's movement? Would you join that group, and why or why not?
Are you speaking of a very, you're speaking of the radical group? Is that what you're speaking of? The constitutionalist firearms?
I frankly don't know which I'm speaking of, but you can answer based on that assumption.
So any group that is a hate group, that is impacting, negatively impacting community, any hate speech, zero tolerance for any member of our organization to be engaged in that. We have had a situation with a reserve that it was recognized that there were social media posts that were in alignment with what I think you're going for here, and that person does no longer work for us. So when we have to maintain a inclusive environment for all of our community and all of our members, and so being also making sure everybody's aware of those types of groups too, and just so we know if someone is engaging in any type of hate type group that is negatively impacting our community. Accountability is key. And when we see something of that effect, we have to address that through our disciplinary process and our corrective action process. But if someone is harming our community, we need to ensure we're working through that they may not work for our organization anymore, and doing a robust investigation and not having them working in the workplace while that is happening as well.
Okay, thank you. Captain.
Yeah, again, I'm kind of perplexed at the question, but I also am concerned when we have people careening outside of protocols and the humanistic aspects of our society. And the sheriff's office at Multnomah County doesn't have room for renegades or people careening outside of that. And so I'm not supportive of any organization that would careen outside those particular boundaries and policies. So I believe in the Constitution wholeheartedly, but it has to be within the confines of not being as radical as I'm understanding maybe the question is at this point, and making sure that our folks are in line with our deputies, our corrections officers are in line with the policies and the expectations of our community, which I believe at this point they would probably be against that particular constitutional sheriff's organization to that extent. So I would just in short say no and go from there.
Thank you. So we've reached the end of our time for questions, so we'll move into 2-minute closing statements, and we'll start with Under Sheriff Morrissey O'Donnell.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate, again, the opportunity to be here. So I have lived and worked in this community for a number of years. I have been working toward this position of attaining the office of sheriff for my entire career. I've been dedicated to serving our community for over 25 years, and community safety is my top priority. We have a justice system and a community that's in crisis. And as sheriff, I will take dedicated action. And I think I've articulated several of those areas that I've already done so, and a vision for working collaboratively into the future. I have a proven track record of identifying the challenges and putting the resources in place to address these issues. From my examples that I shared, both from the Corrections Division and the Law Enforcement Division, I lead with action, and again, proven track record by some of my supporters. I have supporters and endorsers, the current sitting county sheriffs from Washington County, Clackamas County, Multnomah County, and Hood River County. And contract city leaders. Part of our patrol jurisdictions is contract cities, and 3 of the 4 of those mayors have endorsed me. People doing this work every day. So Portland Fire Bureau and the Multnomah County Deputy Sheriff's Association, as well as the Oregonian and the Willamette Week, have recognized the strategies and what I have done in my career to show that I lead with action and I can move these initiatives forward. So in 168 years, we also have never had a female sheriff leading this agency. So I do believe it is time for change. I'm the only candidate in this race that is ready to step in on day one with the certification and training of the police officer certification that is required within 1 year. And that is about an 8-month full-time process. So I'm ready to step into this role. Again, having the support of our local partners to ensure that I have already built those bridges to be able to move these critical initiatives addressing gun violence, addressing homelessness, addressing transportation safety, and really building that community trust and building that community bridge. So again, I hope for your support, and I'm really looking forward to moving into this position in January.
Thank you. Captain Peterson.
Yes, so like I said, I hear the community speaking loud and clear, and they want honesty from our law enforcement. And as I've gotten a chance to talk to people across this county, they are fearful of the situations and issues that are taking place. And the sheriff's office needs to step up to those decisions and those issues and be at the forefront. And I would bring that kind of leadership. I have 5 members of the Portland School Board, 4 members of the Gresham City Council, and Mayor Stovall. So my campaign has been really Multnomah County focused with those folks and organizations that understand the issues that we're dealing with, that is Multnomah County issues. And so I'm proud of those. Ex-Sheriff Lee Brown has supported me, along with Bernie Justo and a host of other folks that I'm extremely proud to have as a coalition that are waiting to work with me through these processes of gun violence and the homelessness issues and the other things that are happening out there. I lead with a servant's heart, not only for the community, but also with the staff that I'd be dedicated to. I am relational. I'm a hands-on person, but I give the room and grace for people to do their jobs effectively. And so as the next sheriff, I just really am excited for being the next sheriff. And that's who I am. And I'll be able to also take the helm at day one. As I said before, in August, I'd love to be able to go to the academy and complete that by December and be ready to move in and lead and direct the sheriff's office in January. Thank
you. This concludes this voters forum with the candidates for Multnomah County Sheriff and Under Sheriff Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell and Captain Derek Peterson. And we thank you candidates for participating, and we thank the audience members for listening. If you're listening, you're obviously making an effort to become an informed voter. And we hope you'll share this resource with family and friends so more people can become informed voters. If you received or if you registered to vote by April 26th, then you should be receiving, either you already have received or you'll receive in the next few days, your ballot. And as you probably know, we have mail-in ballots in Oregon. And so the ballot needs to be returned with a postmark of May 17th at 8 p.m. or deposited by then in one of the official deposit boxes. The locations of those are available at Vote 411 website. This is Carolyn Bupert for the League of Women Voters of Portland. Thank you for watching and listening, and always remember your vote really does count.